All right. Well, we'll let people trickle in. Looks like there's some people not able to get in, but that seems to be the par for the course. So, welcome to the AMA version 2.0. And the reason why it's actually version 2.0 is because when we did the original book launch, version 1.0, we did a group meeting with the Choose FI group in San Diego. And I actually wasn't hosting that one. It was one of my friends, and she sent us a link, and unfortunately the link didn't work. So I actually wasn't even able to get in myself, and I was trying to get in, and I sent everybody the wrong link. So part of this is to get some of you guys that may have missed that first one, as well as those of you that have purchased the book early, and definitely appreciate your support. Just really excited. The book has actually been doing far better than I ever expected. I think we sold a little over 2,500 as of, I guess, today. So 2 weeks in. So that's pretty exciting. I was going to be excited if we sold like a couple hundred, but here we are. So definitely, I think it's striking a chord with people because FIRE is something that is really relatable to all of us. And it's something that we, I think, all inherently can identify with, wanting to have the freedom to do what we want and choose the things that we want in life, whether that's the relationships, whether that's the work that we do, the impact that we create. And that's the real reason why I created this book and even went down this path to, write this book. So the FIRE Planner actually was 3.5 years ago when it first started. And I really didn't know quite what I wanted to do in terms of write a book. I knew that I wanted to put something out there, and I knew I wanted to share information to help other people, but I wasn't quite sure how to do it because there's a lot of great books out there. Actually, I mentioned some of them in the book. People like J.L. Collins, Simple Path to Wealth is a great book that really talks about passive investing. There's the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books that are fantastic. And if you haven't read a Cash Flow Quadrant, definitely check that one out. And so again, there's all these great books out there. So I was like, how am I going to add to the conversation? And lo and behold, FIRE really has caught in some steam in terms of the media and come to the forefront. And for those of you that don't know, financial, that stands for financial independence, retire early. And a lot of people will associate that with your idea of financial freedom. And it's something that, I've been very blessed to participate in early on in life. And so I figured, you know what, maybe I can write a book about FIRE and, I'll self-publish it. That was the grand goal in the beginning, was to do this self-publishing and, take care of it myself and get all the profits. And I was going to go out there and market it myself. And ultimately that went nowhere quickly. It basically collected a bunch of digital dust on my computer. Hello? Oh. Oh, hello, Milan.
Hey,
cool.
Hey, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no worries. And I was just, kind of sharing as far as like how the book came about. And what happened was eventually this book was just sitting there on my computer, going nowhere fast. And lo and behold, a publisher found me because of my blog, Financially Alert. And they said, hey, we're looking to do a book on FIRE. We know that you write about FIRE. Would you be interested? And at the time, I had just started up a podcast called Breakthrough Millionaire. So I was like, you know what? Writing a book's definitely not what I want to do right now. I've already got my hands full with this podcast. I don't even know how to talk, and I'm trying to figure this whole thing out, let alone write a book. I was like, maybe not. But then I slept on it. I was talking to my wife, and I was like, well, maybe I should just entertain and hear what they have to say. So I took the meeting, and lo and behold, it was a company out of the UK, and they were a big publisher, unbeknownst to me, that has been around for 40 years. And their whole niche was really about creating books that have lots of illustrations and diagrams and lots of colorful elements to really engage the reader. And I was like, you know what, that's really cool. Because I know for myself, I learn the best when I'm, ingrained into the material and I'm able to be fully engaged. So I ultimately said, okay, well, let's explore this further. And they basically came up with a concept. I came up with a concept, and we kind of meshed the two together. I wanted a little element of personal development in there as well. they wanted obviously to get some great illustrations, and I loved that as well. So we really came together, created this cool concept, and then we went out and we started kind of pitching it and seeing what the interest was. And lo and behold, there was actually a decent amount of interest. And when finally was said and done, and I signed a contract with them, they said, "Okay, can you get this done in 2.5 months?" And so I was like, "I couldn't get this done in 3 years, so let alone 2.5 months. This is going to be a little bit of a stretch." But I was like, "You know what? Let's do it." And of course, we were in the depth of COVID, so I was like, "Well, I have nothing else better to do, so might as well write a book." And so I did exactly that. And to be honest, I was writing it mostly from midnight to 4 a.m. because that's when my family is essentially asleep. So during the daytime, I like to, be stay-at-home dad and try to be a great husband to my wife during the evening when she comes home from work. And the only time that I had to write, obviously, was at the tail end. So that's when I actually found the time to write it, and that's how we got the book going. And then because they're a UK publisher, we had to find a US distributor or publisher to partner with. And originally, we went with this company called ReaderLink. And so they do a bunch of textbooks, and then they wanted all these changes. They're like, "No, we don't really like the cover. We're going to change this and that." And we're like, I don't know. And then COVID got even worse. And then they're like, "You know what? This economy is like tanking. Forget it. We're going to just pull the plug." And so we're like, "Okay, I guess we're going to sit on this for a while." Lo and behold, Simon and Schuster came out maybe a month later and said, "You know what? We're interested in the book. We'll take a leap of faith on this." And they signed on, and the rest is history to a certain extent. And it's been about 8 months since the point Simon and Schuster's come on. We got the book printed out in Asia, and then it basically gets funneled into Amazon's distribution centers. And it just launched, of course, 2 weeks ago. And so it's been exciting. It's been fun. Lots of outreach and talking to people that I wouldn't normally talk to, and it's been fun. So that's the basis of the book and how it came about. And today I just really wanted to spend some time, sharing some of these stories. And then also, even though this is technically about me, this is more about you. I want to understand your story because everyone's journey to fire is different. Everyone's starting from a different place. And I'm very curious to know, where you're at, and ultimately how my story may be a blessing to you. I've been very fortunate that I've had some family that has given me insight into what's possible. And for a lot of us, that's not the case. I mean, we grow up in a society that tells us, spend all your money, paycheck to paycheck, finance everything, and you'll be fine. And that's far from the truth. I mean, you ultimately finance enough things and you become far enough into debt, and all of a sudden you're then being a slave to money. And that's the last thing, that I want to see. So my whole passion now is really helping to drive a new message and help people to extricate themselves from that so-called rat race, right? So continuing the work of Rich Dad Poor Dad, and really helping people to get hands-on with their um, with their finances so that they can really go and do the work um, that they're passionate about. I think that's really what it's all about. So, with that said, a couple of just quick points before we jump in even further and have you ask questions and whatnot. There's some questions already in advance, but there's some. Let me switch the screen just so you guys quickly see. Got to do the whole, quick legal schmiegel spiel. This is only my opinions and for entertainment purposes only, because yes, this is not financial advice. So obviously, anything that you hear here, everyone's story is different, right? So make sure that the ideas that are presented here before you take any action. Go out and get advice from your own financial advisor first before you take any action. Things of that nature. We're going to be doing some fun raffles. Darren, my cousin, is going to be helping me to facilitate some of that. And for those of you participating, it'll be a lot of fun. We're going to do a couple signed book giveaways, and at the end, we're also going to do some coaching giveaways. So that'll be fun as well. Let me double check one thing really quick because I think I saw in chat. I am going to also be recording this, and I thought I was already, but let me just double check because I actually have done it before where I wasn't recording. I've actually done a full podcast with a guest, and forgot to hit the record button, which was horrible. But he was quite understanding. So don't want to do that. But yes, we are recording. So, if there's anything that you want to ask, definitely ask it. Don't provide, obviously, any personal information. We might rebroadcast this later to the people that weren't able to get in. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, we're going to keep this nice and simple. And okay, so quickly, just some personal things about me. I live here in San Diego, California, and I grew up originally in the Los Angeles area of California. So for those of you around the world that are tuning in, of course, that's where Hollywood is, and Disneyland and all those cool, fun things. And San Diego is about 200 miles south of Los Angeles. And I went down to San Diego to attend university and fell in love with the beach environment. The weather's perfect down here. It's year round, about 75 degrees on average. I don't know, like 320 days of sunshine. So it's really pleasant, and it's probably my favorite place it is my favorite place to live. And that's why I choose San Diego. With that said, I'm an avid traveler. And once all the restrictions are lifted, definitely going to get back out there and travel more. My wife and I have gone to Europe and Asia, and we definitely want to do more of Asia. We've done places like Hong Kong and Macau, but we want to do Japan and Korea and other cool places like that. We've done a good chunk of Europe and a good chunk of the United States. One of my uncles had a motorhome, and so when we were younger, we would pile in a bunch of people into his motorhome. He had a really big motorhome, but I think we fit a good 12 people in there, and we went cross country. We went all the way from California to Los Angeles, and drove, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 miles all the way across to Florida, and just had a phenomenal time. And then another summer, we actually went up north and drove into Canada, came back down through like the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone. And it was, it was fantastic. It was fun. So, definitely love to eat as well. One thing that you may not know about me is actually have a food blog. And actually, my cousin Darren, who's on this as well, we started a food blog even before I started all this personal finance blogging, because we just love to go out and explore and try different cuisines and we like the different cultures that are represented. And sometimes we'll eat at a little tiny hole in the walls. And other times we're going to, 3-star Michelin restaurants and, foo-fooing it up. But we love it all. And so we created a blog called san diego food.net before Darren moved up to the Bay Area. And so it was a lot of fun when we had that time together to really put that out there. But that one didn't really pay too much, so we just did that for fun. With that said, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and start typing in your questions into the chat if you have any. I have a few that people have asked in advance, but if you want to ask, go ahead and throw that in the chat, and I can see that. One of them that came in early was from Dan. So Dan, thank you so much. You had said that you own a primary home in the Washington, D.C. area near Virginia. And so let me just grab this really quick. Okay. And so you had basically asked, you said you had a single family home. It's about 30 years old, needs some work done. Examples include repairing the deck and fence, better landscaping, new windows, new flooring, upgraded bathrooms, and you have a large amount of equity built up, but you could use your own cash or get a HELOC to pay for the upgrades. And so you're curious on what the thoughts are on that and what the trade-offs are in terms of funding the repairs for the eventual sale. So, I think, Dan, it kind of depends, it's a little bit of personal preference. But the nice thing about money right now is because it's so cheap, like you said, it's like at a 2.65% interest rate that you can get to refi out some money to do the repairs. I think it depends on kind of like what your horizon is in terms of when you want to sell the property. And I think right now we're obviously in a great seller's market in most cities. The supplies are really low and there's just huge demand. So you're seeing, homes getting multiple bids.
Bye.
Hello? Hi there.
Sorry.
No worries. Yeah. And I think that happens usually when people jump in, but everyone has been kind enough to mute once they get in. So thank you for that. No worries. It's all good. I've done that too myself. So in answer to your question, Dan, right now the money's really cheap. So like if you do the refinance at 2.65%, that's a great way to, I think, leverage some of that money. The real question though for you is, what's the opportunity cost? What are you going to use that money for? Otherwise, if you have the cash right now, do you have other places that you want to put that and get better returns? Or do you want to be able to just throw it at the property and then ultimately sell it? And right now, because we're in a very strong seller's market, I think we've got another good half year or so of strong real estate sales. However, I do want to just share, that was one of the things I wanted to share with you guys today on the call, was that for this coming year, I think things may shift, because what we're going to see is the housing supply right now is very small, and that's creating a lot of the demand. And part of that, is that the government has kicked the can down the road, so to speak, in the sense that they're not allowing any foreclosures to come through the system. But what happens is, once that is basically, they lift that and they say, okay, foreclosures can occur, then all of a sudden the banks are going to start to foreclose on these houses. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are not going to be able to pay their mortgages. So that's going to create a lot more supply in the market, and it's going to create balance into this real estate market. And at some point, if the supply goes up high enough, it's going to flip, and potentially that could affect prices. It could make prices go down. It could make it more of a buyer's market. So part of that, Dan, is to really, figure out for yourself, what's your time horizon in terms of you wanting to sell the property potentially, and kind of looking, that far out, and what's the opportunity cost. So, feel free to, I see you're on mic right now and you're unmuted. So do you have any follow-up questions in regard to that?
Yeah, actually, Michael, that can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Yeah, okay, good. That 2.625, that's on the first mortgage. So the reason I'm pointing that out is because it's so low. I wouldn't refinance that. What I would do, if trying to think of whether I would go with a HELOC or cash, HELOCs are still low. Also, the rates are low. I would get a HELOC and not refinance, because it has such a low rate.
Got it. That's right. You did say that. I apologize. I misread it.
So that's where I was going. It's tough because there are a lot of obviously prices of houses are rising greatly around the DC area, and it's tempting to actually walk away, and because people will just buy it as is too. There's that option. But the thing is, you have to figure out where you're going to go next, and that's not that easy. A lot of people are renting back. In fact, a neighbor sold his place, but he's renting back until he can get into his new place. So that's happening too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's a great point, Dan. We're definitely seeing that in California as well.
Yeah,
because the prices, are like, so I was tempted. I saw some of the prices that my neighborhood house, like across the street from us, like just sold. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, maybe I'll pull the plug at this place and just rent for a while and see what happens in a couple of years and then buy back.
Yeah.
But
that's going to help your rentals too.
Yeah.
That's going to help your rentals.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It is interesting. I mean, in terms of the HELOC, Dan, do you have any other, like, what's your opportunity cost as far as like, what would you do with the money otherwise? Because if it's just going to sit around,
that's a tough one, Michael, because I would keep it around just as kind of an emergency fund, and not invest, just to keep it liquid, because I obviously have other investments. So that's just thinking about which way to go with it there. But obviously with the HELOC, you could borrow it if you needed if you had an emergency, you could get more from that too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost good to borrow money when you don't need it.
Right. That's
Right.
usually how it works, actually.
You know?
And so for those of you that are, more at the beginning of your journey, I think Dan actually brings up a great point in that as you, go through your financial journey of financial freedom, it's interesting when you need the money, it's tougher to get the money. And then when you actually don't need it, it's actually a lot easier to get it, which is ironic, but such is life. That's how it works. And so, yeah, Dan, I guess you're in a positive, in a positive position. So it's a good problem to have, I would say, right?
True.
Yeah. So, again, I think for you though, it's really about that time horizon, right? In terms of potentially if and when you want to sell, because right now, if I were you, I think personally, like right now, I would, if I were going to sell within the next half year, I would sell as is. I wouldn't even do any repairs because the demand is just so ridiculous right now.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. And even actually, I ended up selling one of our San Diego properties in the, let's see, I think it was back June of last year, June and July. So we were in the depths of COVID. We had kind of come through the dip of March and things started to kind of pick back up. And I ended up ultimately doing a for sale by owner so I could save on the real estate commissions. And, I'm still happy I did that. Obviously, I missed out on some of the upswing, but at the same time, what happened was with this property specifically, there was a lot of equity stuck in there, and I wasn't able to really make use of that or get good cash flow returns off of that equity. And so that's why I ended up selling that one and then ultimately buying some other rental property.
That sounds good.
Cool. Steve had a question in regards to what does my daily life look like? That's a good question. The cool thing is, for me, daily life right now is pretty relaxed. It's a lot of it is based around my kids and their school. So I'm usually waking up about 7:30 ish, making sure the kids are up and ready for their online classes. They're still in distance learning here and they'll go back in person, I think in July. So we're on a year-round school system here. And so I usually get them started. Once I get them all started, they get on their classes. Then I come up to my office and I start, working on some of the blog stuff that I work on, financial coaching, and a lot of. I'll do some outreach to some PR and do some social media as best as I can. I'm not the best at it, but I try. And then in between, I'll take a lot of breaks. I try to get a little bit of exercise in, just quick random things. I'll do some meditations throughout the day and just try to stay active and be present is really what my day is really kind of focused around. I spend actually a good chunk of time the night before kind of figuring out what my day is going to look like ahead of time. I'm kind of a night owl, so I typically will go to sleep around 3 a.m. or so. So usually by the time it's 3 a.m., I kind of have a good idea of what the next day is going to look like. And so when I finally do wake up, I have a little morning routine that I go through. And most recently, I've been making a very conscious effort not to look at my phone. So something that you guys may want to consider and try and challenge yourself. But not looking at my phone, doing the normal, get ready for the day type of stuff, brush your teeth and go to the restroom, things like that. And then, like I said, really getting those kids ready and then getting myself ready with some meditation, doing some light exercise, and then, starting to work on some items, as well as I'd like to have some fun in between. So I just recently got a new toy, which is a Oculus Quest 2. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's a it's a little VR headset. And if you haven't tried VR yet, it's actually a really cool experience. It's kind of trippy because like you literally put this headset on and then you like experience like in 3D, like this entire different digital world, and the technology is getting better and better. So the graphics are getting even better. So it's actually, it's almost scary because like you get so immersed in it that you kind of forget where you're at sometimes, but that's been my little latest side distraction, let's just say. And then throughout the day, I'm cooking for the kids. I'm cleaning, greeting my wife when she comes home. We might do some bike riding when she gets home. And on the weekends, I like to go out and do some fishing. So my fellow fisherman, Steve, out in Arkansas, I love the bass fishing. And then in San Diego, we also have ocean fishing. So I also go on a little panga boat with one of my friends, and we go out like a couple miles and look for bonita and yellowfin tuna, rockfish, and things of that nature. So that's usually what keeps me busy throughout the week. And yeah, I can't complain.
Sounds like a great life.
I can't complain. It's great. It's great to have.
There are no boomers out there like me that are ever up at 3 a.m. unless the house is on fire.
It's funny. Some of my friends are like the early morning risers. And so sometimes when I go to sleep, that's like when they're waking up. So like if I'm up to like 4 and then they're like waking up at 4, like we can actually cross paths with emails and stuff. And it's like, oh, you're up. Okay, I'm going to sleep.
Oh yeah, my wife and I get up at like 4:30 to run in the mornings.
Nice.
So
very nice, very nice. And Steve, your second question was, you said that you hated your real estate experience, and you said, do you think you can gain financial independence without owning rentals or being in a syndicate? Yes, absolutely. So I definitely know some people that have had some terrible real estate experiences. And Steve, just to empathize with you, I will tell you that my first real estate investment purchase ever, I studied for probably 4 years, everything I could about real estate investing. I figured out what the numbers were. I figured out how to make it cash flow. I figured out, what the given area was supposed to perform at. And I got all my ducks in a row. And I was like so excited that I was like, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and finally pull the trigger. And I did. And I actually got this house, and I was like, sweet, the numbers are going to be perfect. I'm going to make all this money. It's going to cash flow like, I think like $300 a month. And I thought I was clever because I was like, I'm going to finance this as a second home. So I'm not going to tell them it's a rental per se. I'm just going to say it's a second home. And then later on, I'm going to go and make it a rental. What happened though was I bought this house. I financed it at a low rate as a second home. And then I found out that I couldn't rent the house out at all. So literally my income property was not an income property. It was just a property.
Ouch.
Ouch. Ouch is right. Yes. And so felt pretty dumb with that one. So just a little, some food for thought for you guys that are just starting out there. You can still reach FI even if you do dumb things like me. I don't suggest it. I definitely don't suggest that. But if you didn't want to use real estate, there's definitely other ways, right? There's the FIRE accelerators that I talk about in the book are extreme savings and investing. And I think that's more of a mindset that you can adopt. And that's really what that is just learning to mitigate what your expenses are and figure out what your income is and making sure that you always have a surplus. And a lot of times, in society, we're trained to obviously keep that basically like paycheck to paycheck, but you can train yourself the other way. And the interesting thing is because as humans, we're very adaptable. It's actually interesting because we'll actually adapt and we don't actually miss that once we get into that habit of putting aside money and not, spend. And especially once we get past some of the basic necessities, it's even easier to save even more. So being able to invest into passive index funds, as I was mentioning, J.L. Collins is a great proponent of passive investing in index funds. And for those of you that aren't familiar with what an index fund is essentially a mutual fund or an exchange traded fund called an ETF. And all it does is it tracks the stock market. So it might track the S&P 500, which is like the top 500 companies in the New York Stock Exchange, or it might track the entire market, which is like all 3,000 stocks that are being publicly traded. And the cool thing about that is if you invest into a couple of these indexes, then you get the benefit of growing your assets over the long run in a very diversified manner. And then you're not trying to figure out when to go in and out of the market. And unfortunately, the majority of people lose money because they try to time the market. And when you get emotions involved with trying to time the market, it can be very difficult. And most people, unfortunately, pull out at the wrong time and they put money in at the wrong time. So it's nice that there's actually a way to invest passively into these index funds where you don't have to think about it. You literally set it and forget it. And so that's what I really recommend to people first and foremost. And then beyond that, if you're not going to go into real estate, I like entrepreneurship. That's something where you can really go and create some sort of a service or product, sell that out to the marketplace, and give people, value in some sense and get a return on that because you're providing value. I think that's a fantastic way to accelerate your income and get yourself on the fast path to FIRE, so to speak.
Michael, do you talk about side hustles too?
I do a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, Dan, on one of the side hustlers that I focused on was this girl named Michelle. And Michelle actually was a blogger such as myself. And she started earlier than I did, but she was, just talking about how she was dealing with, this whole idea of trying to figure out her expenses and, being able to save. And she didn't come from money, and she was just felt like she was always on this rat race. And so she kind of chronicled her journey of, basically saving more, getting into that saving mindset. And then at the same time, using her blog as an entrepreneurship vehicle to catapult her to, new heights. And her blog did very well. And she was able to save, I think like 6 figures a month at some point. But obviously that didn't happen until much further on. The most important thing I think to note, especially for people that are at the beginning of the journey, is that the hardest part is in the beginning. And it's a time when you're, really taking the action and not seeing the result necessarily. That's actually the most important time, is getting started, taking the action. And then after that point, you start building momentum. And ultimately that momentum will carry you forward. And there's a certain point, an inflection point, where compound interest takes hold. And then it's just, you're off to the races, because then you're not doing anything, but your money's literally just growing for you. And it's incredible when you get to that place. But again, focusing at the beginning and being very, I think, cognizant is really what I like to teach people. And that's what we do in the coaching programs, is get people very clear on what it is that they're spending their money on, being intentional with what you value. Because a lot of times we have things that, if you look at your expenses, chances are you're going to find things in there that you don't necessarily need, or maybe there's things that you don't love as much anymore. Even for myself, a lot of times now we have these ongoing subscriptions, and I might find something where I'm like, I don't really need this extra TV subscription to this other channel that I never watch. I actually don't even watch much TV anymore myself. And you can cut that out. But all these little bits and pieces really help to build that mindset. And then as you're going through your career, you can start to take new income increases as you go along. Most people have the ability to get, let's just say on average, some sort of a cost of living adjustment. Plus, if you're doing good work and providing value to the company that you work for, then you're going to get some sort of adjustment or raise on an annual, maybe 2 or 3 years, you might get an increase. And that's where the real opportunity is. It's what I like to call raise laddering, where you keep stepping on all of your raises. You spend a portion of it and enjoy some of that. But guess what? Spend it, enjoy it, and then take the rest of that and save it and invest it. And the good thing is, if you already have in your mind that you're going to do that, and you just automatically push that away and push that to the side by automatic deductions or using some sort of a tool, all of a sudden, it's not that hard to save. And all of a sudden, your savings and investing percentage goes up dramatically. So just keep that in mind. And it's definitely talked about in the book as well. But something where I'm a huge fan of automation, because if you can automate it and set and forget it, then it's really a powerful way to not feel the pain. No one wants to feel like they're cutting back. And so I say you can have it all as long as you prepare yourself mentally.
That's great advice. And as your oldest fan, probably, that's exactly what my wife and I did. And we are multiples of what we need now in retirement. But we also had a full life. but it was by controlling that lifestyle inflation to well below our income increases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for that, Steve. And yeah, you're a fine example of exactly that. And that's the beautiful thing too, right? You don't have to use real estate. You can do it so many different ways. You could do it actually even without doing the entrepreneurship, if you just are very focused on your investing and savings. And here's one other thing too, as well. If you are working for a company and you don't really want to take that leap and become an entrepreneur or do your own side hustle, what if you go in and become an intrapreneur? And what an intrapreneur is someone that's in the company that looks for opportunities to create more value in the existing company that you're already in. And so it's very easy to go out and pitch someone in your own company, your own boss, and say, hey, there's this initiative that's coming down the pipe. I know that some of your metrics to perform are based on this. If I can help you to, get some of those goals and, smash them, would you be willing to give me an extra bonus of X amount if we can accomplish this together? And I'll be willing to spend a little bit of extra time outside of my normal job duties. If I'm his boss, I'm going to be like, well, of course, let's do it. No questions asked. And sometimes people forget that there's so many different opportunities. And so again, with FIRE, that's where I get really excited, is because we get sometimes stuck and we're almost sleepwalking in this life sometimes because we forget to kind of look at all this beautiful picture that's in front of us. And so that's actually why I shared that first slide with you guys. I'm gonna put it back up with the circles. So for most people, you might see lots of squares, right? And if you look harder and you look a little bit closer, I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor. There's actually 16 circles. One right here, one right here, one right here, and one right there. And you gotta look for it. But the underlying message here, right? The takeaway is that perspective is so important, because if we don't know what to look for, then it's very hard to find it. And so that's why I'm a big proponent of obviously finding people that have already accomplished what you're looking to do, and put yourself in their proximity so that you can do the same thing. All right. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and do the first book signing giveaway. And Darren has been kind enough to help me do this on the back end. But Darren, if you wouldn't mind running the first one, that would be great. And we'll see who wins that one. And while Darren's running that, I'm going to read the next question. Let's see.
Michael,
All right,
while you're reading,
yeah,
I was just quickly, do you think it's better to get the Kindle version of your book or the printed copy?
Yeah, definitely the printed copy. And I'll
you
tell
recommend?
you why.
Because I was thinking of giving it to kids too.
Yeah. For the Kindle version that they created, unfortunately, doesn't really translate well.
Okay.
The physical copy is actually much better. Well, when you get it, you'll actually see it's actually, even though it's a paperback, is actually very thick, and the paper is like really great quality. So that was one thing that they did great. Simon Schuster actually put in some money to invest in the better quality. And I would typically say an electronic version is okay. However, with the Kindle one, I don't know who did the conversion on Simon & Schuster's side, but the conversion didn't really translate that well in, because there's lots of graphical elements, and because it's probably not their fault. It's just because like the Kindle, right? You can resize text and things of that nature. So I think some of the graphics doesn't really play very nicely in the Kindle version. So definitely I would recommend the paperback version. Although usually I'm a fan of actually electronic.
Yeah. Thanks for answering that one.
Sure. All right. Cool. All right. So Darren said the winner of the first book is Mally. Nally, congratulations. You have a signed book. Actually, you're going to get another one because I already owe you another one, but congratulations. That's fantastic. One to give away to the grandkids, right?
Yeah.
And Mally is joining us all the way from New Zealand. So thank you for taking the time to join us from
Thanks,
so far
Michael.
away. Cool. All right. Well, we'll do another book giveaway in another 10 minutes or so. Lavina asked, should I tap into a 403B to start out in real estate investing? Fantastic question. I'm really glad you asked that, Lavina, because it's a very common question that I get from people. And of course, everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different. But if I were in your shoes, typically I'm going to say no. And the reason why is that part of your journey is really building that initial, I think, muscle of putting and saving and investing and saving, the one that I just talked about. The first FIRE accelerator is investing and saving. So if you're already putting money into that 403B, congratulations. That's fantastic. Actually, that's really great. And I say, continue putting it in there. I don't know what you're putting it into there right now. Do you know what it's in currently? Is it like a index fund, or is it like a mutual fund that the school offers or university or whatnot? You can put it in the chat or unmute. But depending on what you have it in, ultimately you could potentially look at different index funds potentially as another alternative just to get a little bit better returns. One of the things that many people don't realize, and even with my own wife, she's a school teacher, she has a 403B as well, is that a lot of times when you invest in a 403B or even a 401k, a lot of times you're going to be investing into funds that the company or your educational entity is going to offer you. And they literally might only offer you about 12 different things because they want to keep it simplified. However, a lot of times these funds will have loads, and loads are basically another word for commissions. And they take out commissions sometimes when you buy it. They sometimes take commissions when you sell it. And sometimes they take commissions throughout the entire process. And so the problem with that is that it really eats away at your ability to get a good return. And even though it doesn't really seem like that much, it actually can really take away a lot of the upside later on when you're going in and trying to grow your, like what I like to call your fire nest egg. So definitely, check with your organization, probably your HR department, and see if there's any options to potentially invest into an index fund. Vanguard is probably the biggest company that really offers these index funds that are really low cost. And what I mean by low cost is because it's just tracking a specific index in the stock market, you're going to be paying a fraction, probably like a point, I don't even know what it is, but a fraction of a percent, versus like if you're in a regular mutual fund, they could be charging upwards of like a few different, like 2 or 3%, which is significant versus a fraction of a percent. So definitely consider that. And then as far as, I would suggest maybe leaving it in there, because over the long term, if you're continually investing in, then you're essentially going to be able to grow that over time. Now, if you want to do some real estate investing, I definitely know that I would create like a little separate fund, right? If you're going to be investing, putting away from there, I would consider, putting a little bit more into a side savings account for real estate investing specifically, and allow yourself to, create that separate basket, so to speak. And the reason, again, is just to be able to separate out the different areas of your personal finances so you have it organized. And the more organized you have it, the easier it is to be able to kind of control. And then you're not kind of pulling from different places and not quite sure where individual places are specifically. So definitely, keep that in mind when you're considering that. With that said, if you had an incredible deal that like was staring you in the face and it was going to give you like a 10x return, then by all means, you may want to go into the 403B, borrow from that, get that deal, refinance it out, take some cash out, put it back in the market. that's a consideration as well. But again, if you take, out of there, you can borrow against it, I think, at a certain rate. So that's an option. Definitely don't liquidate, because then obviously you're going to get penalties. But yeah, you could potentially borrow from it at a low rate. So yeah, my final thought is don't do it unless there's a really, really, really compelling reason to. All right. Cool. And you said that they have Vanguard, so that's fantastic. So cool. Steve said, oh, you know that I'm doing some YouTube, and oh, thank you. You said you think I have the personality and voice and appearance to do that. Well, cool. I appreciate that. And here's one thing that's interesting that you may not know is that I started a podcast a year and a half ago because I was terrified of public speaking. I did it because I thought I couldn't do it. And so that's why I actually did it, was because when I was sitting at home, not growing, I was just like, well, what can I do different that can potentially allow me to grow the coaching business and allow me ultimately to impact more people? And a podcast was one of those things that I knew I wanted to do deep down inside, but I thought I was going to be terrible at. And to be honest, I was actually pretty bad in the beginning. If you go listen to some of the initial episodes, little shaky. And here's the thing, it was actually even worse. I actually spent hours on hours going in and cutting out like little ums and ahs and all these little mess ups that I had. I think I recorded the introduction maybe like 50 times or something crazy like that. So I always want to, share that, because I think with anything, especially with personal finance, right, it can seem scary in the beginning. And, it doesn't matter how old you are or where you're at in life. There's always going to be things that scare us. And at the same time, I think the best places to jump into sometimes are the places that scare us, because that's the area where we're going to find the biggest rewards. And you'll find in your own life, look back at your own life, right? Think about what are the most, the biggest accomplishments that have made you the happiest. A lot of times that comes from putting yourself in a position of uncomfortability and growth. So I always like to just put that out there that, I have no clue what I'm doing in terms of some of the podcast stuff, but I'm learning as I go along. I think I've learned a lot over the time. And so I definitely feel like I'm getting better. And so I appreciate your comments, Steve. And same thing with YouTube. You actually should go back and look at one of my original videos when I first started. I think the first one, I was just on the camera and I was just like, hello. it was horrible. But you know what? You go out and you do it and no one watches it. And that's great. And that's a good thing, I suppose. And then you get more comfortable. You get more comfortable in front of the camera and the computer, and you just go after it. So appreciate that comment, Steve. And so, yes, I am actually looking to do more of it. Now that the book stuff is done, I'm actually going to be doing more YouTube, potentially even some TikTok, because that's actually pretty fun, and that you can actually reach a number of people. That's for the younger generation. And yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's a little bit different than blogging. I've been blogging for quite some time, and that's obviously a different part of the brain to be able to write, specific articles and whatnot. But the YouTube and the TikTok, actually, I enjoy that because there's a artistic element that I get to tap into. That's fun for me. I like creating things. And so outside of the speaking element, I like kind of messing around with just the video editing and as well, I'm a tech junkie. So I have lots of, you can't see it here, but I have lots of tech toys interspersed through my office. All right. So the next question was, Dan, you had some thoughts. You said, what are your thoughts on financial advisors and fees? And you said that you're with Personal Capital. And okay, so that's another fantastic question. That's really a great question. So for those of you that don't know, financial advisors are people that will help you to invest your money for you. And they may have a specific type of methodology. Sometimes they say they do, sometimes they don't. But unfortunately, in the business of money, the name financial advisor actually is a little misleading. A lot of financial advisors are essentially salespeople, and I don't like the name financial advisor. I think a financial advisor should be someone that's guaranteed to be a fiduciary, someone that's looking out for your best interests. But the way that the the industry is structured, a financial advisor could literally offer you like a fund that may not necessarily be suitable for you. And it's very hard to kind of read between the lines. So it depends. I would say for the most part, I would shy away from financial advisors because they do charge an upfront fee that's pretty hefty. And what I mean by that is typically, let's just say you had a portfolio of $500,000 and you have, lots of stocks that they're helping to kind of watch for you. To be honest, if you're a passive investor, there's not that much that has to be done in order to manage that portfolio. So they charge a lot of money to they charge you maybe like 1% to 2% every single year in order to so-called manage this. And although it doesn't sound like a lot, that's actually a ton of money that can ultimately be taken away from your upside. So if you look at a chart actually of someone that has like management fees versus not, you'll see that someone that gets into compound interest later on down the line, that they're able to accelerate the growth of their nest egg much, much faster than someone that's paying those fees. So typically, I would, if you're willing to invest some time into understanding your own personal finances, then I would consider, either doing it yourself or Steve and Dan brought up a good idea. Personal Capital is what's called a robo advisor. So they're actually, it's great. They're replacing some of the traditional advisors and charging a much lower fee. And in some senses, they're actually providing a better value because they're using computers and data to give you index management. So managing your portfolio using index funds. And so they can charge a much lower fee. So that's definitely something to consider. I haven't specifically used that myself, but definitely something that I may consider in the future.
Michael, just one thing to mention. The nice thing about Personal Capital too is it's a hybrid where they obviously are using data and it's kind of like a robo advisor, but you have access to talk to people too. There are people that are assigned to you when you have a certain amount invested.
Uh-huh. That's great to know. Yeah, it is like a hybrid. And I think that's the best of both worlds. It really depends on your specific situation. Some of us like to be very hands-on, in which case, you can manage it yourself. Other people want to be completely hands-off, in which case, then use some sort of a management advisor or hybrid. And at the same time, I always tell people, regardless of if you use a manager or not, you still want to make sure that you always know what's going on with your own money. Don't ever kind of lose sight of your own portfolio, because what can happen is if you do, then unfortunately there's lots of stories of like Hollywood actors, right? They like give their money to a financial advisor and all of a sudden it's gone, right? We still have to ultimately have that self responsibility to be able to make sure that our personal finances are we're the number one fan of our own personal finances, is what I'm basically trying to say. Cool. All right. And Darren, let's go ahead and do our other book giveaway. And this one, Darren, go ahead and do like the whole list, because there are some people that are not on this specific webinar, but there were some people that signed up early for the pre-order, and this will be their chance to get the book. But while you're doing that, let's see what else we got in here. And if I skipped over anything, feel free to interject, you guys. Let's see. All right. Cool. Okay, so we've got another winner, Rosanna Davila. So congratulations to Rosanna Davila. And I will reach out to you and send you out your signed copy of the book. All right. Cool. Give me 1 second. I'm just double checking my time. Okay. All right, cool. Any other questions? If not, I'll go to some of the other ones I got sent in earlier, but anyone's from people here? Otherwise, I'll take a look at these. Okay, so someone asked, what was it? Okay. How much of an effect did the sale of your company have on your ability to fire early? Ooh, okay. Good question. Great question. So, for those of you that don't know, I actually started an IT company when I was in my mid 20s. And it occurred because I was working at a company that was in the dot-com industry. We were a tech startup, and 9/11 hit, and it hit our company pretty hard. And so there was a lot of fallout from that. And people got laid off left and right. I think we were on the 7th round of layoffs by the time I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to stay here for the 7th round and see what happens, because I'm going to probably be next on that chopping block. So I grabbed a couple of my friends in the office and I said, you know what? We're actually the only segment of this company that's profitable, because we did IT infrastructure and support, meaning that we were supporting servers and desktops and doing networks. And so I said, let's go out and do our own thing. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Either we can, fail fabulously, or we can get laid off. I mean, it's going to be the same outcome. And so we did exactly that. We exited from the company. We quit essentially, and then we started our own company doing IT infrastructure and support. And we just basically worked from home and got in our hands and knees and put a lot of sweat equity into building this company. And slowly over time, it started to grow. And we're able to build some processes in. We were able to bring some new people in, some new employees, and bring some family in to work with us. And at the end of 10 years or so, we had a couple of different offices, one in San Diego and then one in Chicago. And we had to make a decision at that point of what we wanted to do with the company. And for myself, although IT was, definitely providing value to people, I felt like I wasn't necessarily tapping into my, I guess, what I was here to do. I don't know. It didn't feel like, it was really my complete calling. Although I had a lot of my identity tied to tech, I was like, there's something more that's missing. And we had an opportunity to sell the company due to a number of different circumstances. And we did exactly that. We basically sold the company to a private equity firm in New York. And then they basically combined us with some other companies that they had purchased, tried to mash them all together. Didn't work out exactly as they intended, but nonetheless, we were able to cash out, a chunk of equity. And so for myself, I was able to pull out maybe a few $100,000, like $300,000 or $400,000 or so. So, definitely a hefty chunk of change at the time. This was back in 2000. Let's see, when was that? 2013-ish or so. And yeah, it was, and so obviously that was a nice chunk of change. But what I did with that was I actually put that into real estate. So I essentially converted that into real estate investments and or the purchase of our own personal residence. So it definitely helped. I will say it definitely helped to catapult me closer to FIRE at that position and at that point, because obviously there's an influx of capital all at once. Now, I do want to share, though, sometimes people hear that and they're like, well, you had this big exit and all these different things. But the interesting thing is, along the way, we weren't paying ourselves like a huge sum of money. Like, I don't think I was even making six figures until the last like year 10 or so. So, it was just gradual income that we were slowly increasing. And the reason why I want to share that is because if you're on a path to FIRE, you don't necessarily have to go out and have your own company per se, right? If I had the equivalent of working a corporate job, I could have had the same outcome, because in a corporate job, you have potentials to earn different bonuses throughout the year. So that $400,000, if that's split up over 10 years, that could have been, realized over that time as well. And so I just want to share that, even though I did have this business and it was an exit, it wasn't like a big unicorn where like, I exited and there's like, $100 million type of thing, but it was enough to obviously get things started. And then for myself, the real estate definitely did help because I did go in at year 2010, 2011, 2012, and I was buying up some properties when, things were rock bottom. And that's why I do definitely enjoy real estate, because there's a slower cycle than the stock market. And so for myself, I feel like that's something that you can ultimately time to a certain extent. You can't always, but sometimes I believe you can. Cool. All right, let me see. All right, well, we are at 5:09. So let's go ahead and let's do another giveaway. One of the giveaways that I wanted to do that there's going to be some more people on this giveaway as well because they're not here, but is 250,000 or 250,000. That would be a lot of donation, but a $250 donation to your favorite charity. So we're going to go ahead and run that one. So Darren, if you wouldn't mind helping me to run that. Small way to, give back. And one of the cool things I think as we talk about this is what we did last year was, because I sold this property in San Diego, is, there was definitely some income increase and some profit that was realized. And so anytime that you sell a property, you're going to have to potentially pay for capital gains taxes. And you're also going to have to pay what's called a depreciation recapture tax. And so these can be some very hefty taxes that come into play and really eat into your profits. So there's a couple different things that you can do. You could potentially 1031 exchange that. And what that means is if you're selling a property, you can ultimately take that money and then buy another property of like kind, and then be able to not pay any of those capital gains taxes or depreciation recapture. In my case, I wasn't ready to purchase more things because we had a decent amount of equity into the property. And so what happened was that I decided to get creative, because I was like, I still don't want to pay all these taxes that they're asking me to pay. So what we ended up doing was we combined, two of our passions, right? We, part of what's important to me now is being able to create impact and also to give back. And so what we did was we created what's called a donor advised fund. And what a donor advised fund is the ability for you to donate a lot of money all at once so that you can offset a bunch of the taxes in a single year. So it's a nice little win, because then all of a sudden I don't have to pay all those taxes up front. I get to create what's called this donor advised fund that basically sits there. It can grow in value over time. And then I ultimately, it's no longer my money, but I get to control where that money goes. And so every year I get to now basically take money from there and donate it to different entities and places, and as well as be able to grow it over time for any charitable causes that I like. So I always want to be able to share that. And it looks like we have a winner, Hannah G. You win the $250 donation to your favorite charity of choice. So I will reach out to you later and ask you where you'd like that to go. But congrats on that. Cool. Let me see. All right. So if you have any more questions, continue obviously putting them in as we get moving forward. All right, cool. So I just want to share really quickly, because I think some of you know and some of you don't know. Of course, I run a blog called financiallyalert.com. And that's basically the blog that I started writing when I fired, so to speak, when I retired early. I needed something to do because obviously I was home with my kids. It was actually a lot of fun. However, it was quite taxing as well. So I wanted to be able to tap into the adult world as well. And so that's why I started blogging at Financially Alert. So if you're interested, go there. I write a lot about financial independence. I write about different money hacks and things of that nature. And as well, obviously, of course, you're likely here because of the book, The F.I.R.E Planner. And of course, that book is all about making FIRE accessible to anyone and really being able to make that a realistic option in your life. Because again, I really want to give you guys the ability to have choices in life. I think that's the most beautiful thing, is when we have choices and we have time. I personally believe that that's when we tap into our, God-given talents and ultimately affect the world most positively. And really, I think, is the most efficient in some regards. And when we're not in a state of lack and we're in a state of abundance, I just feel that people are able to give back so much more. So really being able to share that, that's what that book is all about. If you haven't already, you can go to financiallyalert.com/FIRE cheat sheet. And this is where it's going to list out some of the resources that I talk about in the book. So there's some FIRE calculators on there. There's a list of the other bloggers that have achieved financial independence on there, as well as some other information on FIRE specifically. But I'm going to actually be updating that as we go along. Right now, it's kind of just the basic stuff that's in the book, but I'm going to actually be expanding that and going beyond further, because there's so much great information out there. And one of the biggest problems actually is that there's too much information. It's like, okay, where do you go? Like if you search for FIRE, it's like a million different places. And it's just like, it's hard to figure it out. So this is going to give you that cheat sheet to really zero in on the people that I've already vetted. It's the people that, I collaborate with. It's people that I admire. It's people that are doing FIRE in their own way. So definitely go check out, some of these other bloggers and see what they have to say, because we all resonate with, different people, and that's fantastic. And then today, one of the things I had mentioned on this call was that everyone that attends, I was going to give a free bonus gift to. And one of my, well, let me just start really quickly by saying that I have 2 group coaching options. One of them is called Financial Freedom Pass, and that's all about really getting you on the path to financial freedom and really starting from the beginning, getting your mindset squared away, understanding where your money story has started, how you can ultimately shift some of these beliefs, and getting some of those fundamentals in place. That's Financial Freedom Pass. And then the second group coaching is called On Fire. And that's actually one that I'm working on currently. I actually haven't released it yet, but we're going to be doing a giveaway for both of these groups here shortly. But what I want to say was Financial Freedom Pass, the first one, I have in this and a specific standalone course called Financial Freedom Kickstart. And so this is something that really goes hand in hand with the book in terms of the F.I.R.E Planner. And it's really interactive, and it's like a little small video course that really will take you through understanding what your definition is of financial freedom, because everyone's definition is a little bit different. And financial freedom doesn't have to be a specific number. It's actually the place where you actually finally feel that you're not being controlled by money, or that you feel constrained by money. It's a point where you feel free, that you can live your life, accordingly. And that doesn't mean you have to be fully fired. I think we can actually get there once we get some of that emergency fund in place and we get some of that comfortability. It can be at a place where, you have enough cash flow coming in, where that your bills are going to be taken care of. It's going to vary, and it may evolve for you actually over time as you continue your journey. So it really helps you to dig into there and understand what that looks like for you and get clarity, as well as get a very clear snapshot of your finances. So that's what Financial Freedom Kickstart is. And I charge basically $99 a year to access that. I'm going to be giving you guys access to that for free, for life, just for joining. That's my gift for you. And if you go to financialfreedompass.com/kickstart, go ahead and sign up. And there's a promo code that you'll see on the page right here. It's FIRE 2021. And if you pop that in, it'll take care of the price and get you in there at no charge and no cost. With that said, if you do want more assistance and more help, definitely, I'd love it if you want to join some of the other groups that we have. We've got fantastic people in the group right now, people from all over the world, and they really bring a passion for I think really shifting and making a change, right? Learning and growing together. And the reason why I focus more on group coaching now instead of private coaching is because I believe there's more power when we're in proximity to other people and we can all feed off of each other. And sometimes in our lives, we're not in a position where we can be around people with the mindset that we want to adopt. So this is a way that you can get access not only to me, but other like-minded individuals, and we can all win together. So again, Financial Freedom Pass is those of you that are kind of beginners to intermediate. And then on F.I.R.E, that's the one where we're going to be just focusing really on those income accelerators. So whether it's starting a side hustle, entrepreneurship, starting up a business, good diving deep into real estate investing, that's what the On F.I.R.E group is for. So I'll definitely send out more information on each of those and give you guys access to, I'm going to give you guys some extra bonus incentives just for being on the call as well. But just keep that in mind when you see those emails. And with that said, let's go ahead and do the giveaways for the two group coaching calls, or for the two group coaching. What did I say? Oh, 3-month membership for Financial Freedom Pass and a 3-month membership for the On F.I.R.E Income Accelerator. So, Darren, if you wouldn't mind, let's do the 3-month membership for the Financial Freedom Pass first. And yeah, that one's worth about $900. So definitely, yeah, I'm excited for whoever wins this. Oh, is this? Uh-oh, it says there's no page there. All right. If you're having issues with the page, I'll double check and make sure that I've got my spelling correct. If for some reason it's not working, then I'll go back in and fix that. But it looks like someone said that they couldn't find the page. So I will get that fixed and send that out. But the winner is Brittany Piper. So you win the 3-month membership for Financial Freedom Pass. So congratulations. I will be reaching out to you and getting you squared away. But congratulations. Go, Brittany. And all right, so let's do the next one and see who the lucky winner is for the On F.I.R.E Income Accelerator. And this one actually is more expensive. This one is a little bit more. There's going to be a little more time involved, but it's going to be a smaller group potentially. I'm going to cap it at a specific point. But you'll see, obviously, this one's going to be worth at least about $1,500. So good luck. We'll see who Darren picks out of here. And Steve, you have won the On F.I.R.E Income Accelerator. So congratulations. You are the big winner.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So this is my
Hello. Oh. Cool. All right. Well, congratulations, Steve. You would be a fantastic addition to this group. Cool. Any other questions from anyone? I think I've got a couple other pre-questions from before, but anyone directly in here? Let's see. And side note, Steve, I mean, of course, obviously it would be fantastic to have you in the group. With that said, if you wanted to also gift it to any grandkids or such or whatnot, you're welcome to do that as well, since you already are well on the way to F.I.R.E and beyond. But totally up to you. But yes, I would love you in there because then I can pick your brain too. And then we can talk about more fishing. So why don't you just join the group as well? Cool. Well, it looks like there's no other direct questions on here. the last one, let me just read a couple of these. Okay. Someone said, okay, what is your thoughts on cryptocurrency? And what are your thoughts on FOMO? Excellent question. Very pertinent and relevant to this week specifically, actually. So, a lot of us have seen a lot of news recently talking about cryptocurrency and even the stock market, like talking about GameStop and how specific people are running up the price on individual stocks. And you may even have friends that have profited in the short term from some of these, and they may have gotten returns of like 3-4 times their money, and they're like super happy, and they're like, look at this, look at me, I did this, and that was great. And that's fantastic. I would say that there is an opportunity to be had to be able to create returns. With that said, our human nature is such that we typically don't like to take profits off the table. So if you are in a position where you've actually already collected some upside, I would say maybe you may consider taking some off the table and collect your initial base that you may have invested, and then you can play with house money. And what I mean by that is I invested in Amazon when it was like about $10 a stock, and I was very fortunate, obviously. But because I was in tech, I actually knew that there was this whole thing that they were doing with the cloud computing. No one even knew what cloud computing was back then. And so it literally doubled and tripled, and I literally took some off the table. I sold a bunch, and in hindsight, there's all this money that potentially could have been made over the long haul. However, I took profits off at every single point where I saw it grow up like 1,000%, 200%, and I would take little bits and pieces off the table. And the reason why I share that is because sometimes it's in our nature to basically want it all and try to capture the biggest amount of profit. The problem is that is not a very sustainable model over the long term. And so what you're seeing now with some of the cryptocurrency and the people that are making these big swings upwards, I would say keep an eye on them and see where they are in 5 years, 10 years. And what you're going to find is that the people that have been following the slow and boring methods like passive investing into index funds are going to be the people that are winning in the long term. And the people that had these crazy swings up and down, I would be willing to put money on it that over the next 10 years or so, they're going to be below in terms of, what their portfolio looks like compared to the person that has invested continuously, slowly, and almost automatically into the market. So again, I say that because it's important, because I see a lot of times people get excited because they're like, oh, well, the stock market's so easy. You just go in and you buy this GameStop, and then someone goes on Reddit and they say, okay, let's bid it up and let's get people all excited. But the problem with that is it's basically a game of musical chairs. You're essentially going in and you're trying to, capture an upside that is more speculative than it is in terms of actually investing in an actual idea. So there's a very big difference in investing and speculating. And that's something that we talk about in Financial Freedom Pass, as well as we're going to talk about on F.I.R.E. And I will say that once you have enough assets, it's fine to have a little side bucket or a little side basket that you can speculate in, and you can do some of these investments. And I do that for myself. So for example, I have a BlockFi account, and I do some cryptocurrency trading in there, and I try to, capture it on the downside and sell it at the upside. And I don't know, that might be like $1,000 or something like that. So I share my net worth and all of my finances publicly on the website. So you can see that's a teeny infinitesimal, fraction of their overall net worth, because most of them are just stuck in index funds. But I still want to play with it, right? I want to still see if I can game the system and figure it out. But I do want to say that, just keep that in mind as you're going on, figuring out what investing is and what speculating is, and being very clear of what you're doing. So with that said, that's my final thought for the evening. And again, I really appreciate you for coming today and purchasing the book. It's been fantastic to see the book, take off. And if you wouldn't mind, if you already have the book and you're willing to, If you wouldn't mind sharing a review on Amazon, that would help immensely, just to help the readers to understand what this book is about. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to also email me. And my email is also on the slide that's up, I believe, at the bottom. So michael@financiallyalert.com. If you're interested in private coaching, feel free to message me as well. And yeah, wish you very, very much success in the future with your own FIRE journey, and super excited to hear from you as you go forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.